so glad that y'all are here. Just a little bit about what I do in the district is all of our testing programs, I help set those up, push them out in schools, and help schools with the data when we get them back. So if you have a student in Barrow County Schools and they have been here for a year or two, then you've probably heard of the MAP assessment or have gotten MAP scores from your students. So we're going to talk a little bit about what those are and what MAP tells us for our students. So I want to first of all dispel a myth about testing. So this is not a high stakes test. This is not one of those mandated state tests that we have to give at the end of the year. This is something that lets us see how much your child knows throughout the year. It's not let's learn everything and then take a test. It's let's see where we are, learn and teach, see where we are now, and keep moving throughout the year. So it gives us lots of valuable information and lots of valuable information for you as well. We have some handouts that are put out through the company. NWEA is the company that, sorry. Maybe. There we go. All right. So we're going to watch a video in just a second about what MAP growth is, so that you have a better understanding of what your student is doing. I will say this, we take it 3 times a year in Barrow County in K through 8th grade. Do we have any high school parents? High school? Which high school? Bassa. Okay. All right. So if you've been in Barrow County, again, you would have had MAP scores from previous years that do help them. What grades? Sorry. 10. 9. Okay, so yours just came out, and then yours would have scores from middle school. So it even helps in high school, helps our high school teachers know about where that student is coming in, and we can build on the foundation that's already there. So I'll let this play and I'll hand out our, sorry about that. So I'll stop it right there just for a second because that is something that's hard for our kids, is an adaptive test. So it goes from being maybe a question that I recognize and that I can do easily to a question that I may not know the answer for. So, and because it's adaptive, once I answer that question, I can't go backwards because it adjusts the next question to match. So if you have, and that is something that as teachers, we encourage the students to, at some point you just got to make your best guess and move on from there, which is hard for a lot of them, especially if they're used to getting everything right or they're not sure. They'll spend a lot of time on one question, but they can't actually go back to it. So just understand that when if we have any anxiety about the test, that our kids need to understand. All right, so the next slide is going to talk from a student's perspective. So now that you understand what that is, and a lot of times we do have our students set goals with their RIT score, and a lot of times when we say RIT score, parents, you want to associate it with a grade, with 100, 95, 85, and it's not that. It's a number that measures how much they know, and the great thing about RIT scores is they follow them all the way through. Like, just because I'm in 4th grade this year, when I take it in 5th grade, the RIT scores are comparable. They're going to mean the same thing. And so obviously as the RIT score goes up, indicates the child is learning more and more, usually with their age as well. So this one is, so again, that's our students. And so how many elementary parents do I have? Elementary. Okay, great. So at the elementary level, that first video did talk about how our MAP scores are linked to several other platforms. So in our elementary schools, we use HMH for reading and math, and so now there's a program called Waggle that your student can work on at home, and it's based on their MAP scores. So that helps us put them where they need to be. And we also like to set growth goals at the school level, and that's something that they do usually individually with their teacher, and then every time they have a goal to meet, they work on meeting that goal. And I know several of our schools celebrate a lot when they make those goals. And it is not uncommon to also just keep in mind, like in between their spring assessment and then when we come back in the fall, sometimes our RIT scores go down a little bit. And that's to be expected sometimes, but as we continue to grow, those RIT scores keep going up. So just know that the math assessment for us as a district and for your child's school is about growth, is about learning over the course of time, not one moment in time, how much do you know right now, how much have you learned over time. And that's how giving it 3 times a year and giving it year after year allows us to watch our kids grow and see how much they have learned as they go along. All right, so this one is a little bit more about how your teacher uses the MAP scores because, and that's, again, some of our kids come into school thinking, I have to take a test, this is going to make or break me. I've got to get 100 on the test. And we have to change their thinking on MAP about that because it's not about getting all the answers right. It's about showing us exactly what you know. So when your teacher plans your instruction, you're meeting that child where they are. And if they're above the norm, they're getting enrichment. If they're at the norm, they're getting what they need. And if they need help in some areas, then we're also offering that. So this is kind of from the teacher perspective. So again, like I said earlier, being able to compare where our students are across grade levels. So when they get into 5th grade, that RIT score follows them. Their 5th grade teacher already knows about where they are, and they can build on that without having to do a whole nother assessment. So, let's see. All right, so how do I know my students' scores? There's a couple of ways. So most of our schools do send home the family report at some time. It may come home in a weekly folder. It may come home with your student after the test. But we also have in Parent Portal access to their MAP scores. And it is historical as of last spring. So if you are in Parent Portal, there's steps to get there. It's in More. And it's under assessment. So it's an assessment, so it's going to be under there, but it's going to show you, and it'll show you the date of the test, but you can see their percentiles and their RIT scores and how those have changed over time. And we'll continue to add those every assessment window that they take it. But the family report, when it does come home from your school, it does tell you where your child is falling in the norms, what their growth is. And again, growth is a measure from the last assessment to this assessment. What change did we see? To what degree did their understanding of the material increase? So that breaks it down for you and gives you details about where your child's strengths are and what they may need help with, and that sort of thing. So that's 2 different ways to find out. If you don't see a family report and you can't understand what's on Parent Portal or you haven't gotten in there yet, always call your touch base with the child's teacher first. They can usually get you that report. And then if they can't, then your assistant principal at your school can always pull those reports for you and get them to you if you haven't seen one and you want to keep track of where they are. Now, like this graph right here that they give us on the example. Yes? Oh.
I think she has a question.
Oh yeah, go ahead, sorry.
When you're on the Parent Portal where it says results and there's
Yes.
a number there, is it on a 1 to 100 scale?
Which number?
It's on the very, like, sorry.
No, that's
It's on the
okay.
very edge.
That's a percentile. So the one in the
Okay.
circle, yeah,
So it's 1 to 100
yes, 1 to 100. That's where they fall in. So if you had 100 students of that same grade level, that's where they would fall. There'd be 42 ahead of them and 58 below them, or so yes, so that tells you percentile, whereas the number out of 350, that bigger number, the 177, 182, all of those numbers are their actual RIT score. So sometimes, and again, if you just see that random number, you're like, what is this out of? We include the percentile so you can see about where they fall in the norms.
That score number, what does that go up to?
350, the RIT score, yes, so the RIT score starts, I think at 100. Most of our kindergartners are 150-ish or so, and then it goes up to 350. So, and you'll watch that grow over time too, because they'll keep moving up.
Mommy,
Yeah.
Mommy,
Is this the test that the student gets the score? Like,
They get it at the
when they're done?
end. Yeah, so they sit there and they go through the test, and once they finish all of the questions, it does display their RIT score for them. The percentiles and all of that is figured once we close the window. But yes, the student, and again, with goal setting, that is kind of why we like to get their goal in front of them. Because when that window pops up and says you got a 216, a lot of them know, did I meet my goal or did I not meet my goal? So I know those are conversations I have with my own child about knowing what is he reaching for in the next window, so that, you know, again, I'm encouraging, give it your best. You may not know everything. And that, again, like I said, regardless of your student's ability, that is hard for a lot of us to sit there and say, I don't know this, I can't answer this question, but to give it my best answer. And that's the other thing too that I hear from a lot of students, especially at the beginning of the year. I don't know this, I haven't been taught this. And that's true, is that it's going to give them material, and it will give them material as they answer them correctly, material that is outside their grade level. So it will push them further, and again, they're not supposed to get them all right, and that's okay. And again, that's a mindset that we have to change, because this is an assessment to see where they are and monitor their growth rather than just seeing what they've learned. And we have, our teachers actually have access to what we call the learning continuum. So it lets them see, based on the standards that they're teaching, which students need help in that standard, which ones are ready to learn a new standard. And so it helps them a lot of times. So, and that's why we stress to our kids, if you don't give us everything you know and your best effort, then we may be teaching you something you already know, because according to our information, you need help on this standard. Once they master it, we move on, but at the same time, we want their best efforts, so we offer them the fullest education possible, with meeting all of their needs. So just some reminders, again, our focus is on growth, and that's a lot of times the conversation with a student. They may not meet their goal for this time, but did your RIT score go up? Great, awesome. We want to see growth as opposed to just achievement. Now, and talking about that, there are those percentiles that you will get. What is their growth percentile? What is their achievement percentile? So achievement puts them, like I was saying, out of 100. Where do they fall in that scale of 100? Growth is a measure, their growth percentile is going to be a measure of how much they've grown in comparison to their peers. So, just a reminder of things that to talk with your students. We're coming up to the MAP, what we call the middle of the year window. Every school is kind of given some liberty as to when they schedule their MAP test. It can depend on personnel, what space they have, you know, all of the different things, their schedule. So our window is open from when we return from Thanksgiving until we go out for winter break. But again, schools will schedule it somewhere in that. We give math and reading to all of our students K through 8. And then we also give the language test, language usage, to 2nd through 8th graders. So it's another test that gives them more of an opportunity to use their language functions of conventions and spelling and punctuation and that sort of thing, whereas the reading test really has to do with reading a passage and answering questions and seeing how much they comprehend. So, and again, an adaptive test for some students, if we think about milestones, which is what our end of the year assessment is that's state mandated, they have the ability to flag questions and go back to them and work at their own pace on those. And with an adaptive test, you can't do that, like I said, because once I answer this question, it determines what my next question is based on that answer. So I can't go backwards. So that's hard, especially when we get our kindergartners usually take it on an iPad and have headphones and that sort of thing. But as they get into the upper grades and they're having to read and do the work themselves, it is hard for them to say, but I'm not really sure. I cannot spend a whole bunch of time on one question and keep moving through the test so we can really see what they know. And it does turn out that they only answer about half the questions correct, and that's what we expect. It still lets us see where they are, but it allows us to see if we ask a harder question, are they able to get it? If not, we go back down to a lower question. So And again, no time limit, so if you have a student that doesn't do well, causes them anxiety, if you're saying, we're gonna take a test today and you have 90 minutes. And they're just constantly, there really is no time limit to the MAP test, so they, again, back to the, don't spend too much time on one question. However, if we need to pause it and come back to it, we actually can. We don't like to leave a lot of space between that time. But you may, I mean, I've had a child come home and say, yes, I had to go back in the afternoon and finish it because I didn't get finished in the normal time. And that's okay too. So again, there's nothing wrong with taking some extra time as long as they're doing their best. So, and it is not anything to stress over. However, just like any assessment, we want them to have a good night's sleep, eat breakfast in the morning, and be ready to show us exactly what they know. So just making sure that you know when those MAP test dates are. A lot of times I know I see the communications from schools of MAP test dates and the reminders, especially for the ones that are one-to-one. That Chromebook needs to be charged and you need to be on time so we can get the assessment taken care of in the morning. So just making sure that you know when your child is going to be testing and that they are set up. If they are a one-to-one student and they bring their Chromebook home, making sure it's charged so that there's no interruptions when they are testing. And then if you do, like I said, I told you what our window is for winter. And then come spring, we will test again in April. And so then by the end of the year, your child will have 3 different measures if they've been in the system all year long. And so, but if you have any questions about how it's given at your child's school or anything about the dates, feel free to reach out to your child's teacher and or the assistant principal. They're going to be the ones that are setting up those test sessions and those test dates. So, are there any other questions about MAP? Yeah.
You said Waggle has like something to do with it too?
So HMH is into reading and into math, and then Waggle is an external HMH program that's connected to their profile in HMH, and it pulls in their MAP score. And so it will let them assign, so if a child is ahead, then Waggle's not going to give them the basic first grade math that they've already mastered. It's going to have them work on things that are additional beyond what they've already mastered. So we don't want them spending time doing things that they already know how to do. It's going to allow them to go further. So yes, and that's done on the teacher profile page. Like they can pick out additional assignments, but also Waggle will auto assign based on math. So yeah.
Can we access Waggle at home?
I believe so. Waggles?
They can. We
Yeah.
typically do it in the schools where our teachers have access in the classrooms to go through Waggle and allow students to use like small group instruction or through some center rotation. So typically a lot of it is done in our schools, but we do have access where you can access it at home as a parent.
Yeah. And there may be extra practice in there or different things.
How do we get it?
I'll give you your
Yeah.
Okay, I'll make sure that you got fresh all reaches out to you. I have your
Okay.
information.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions? I appreciate your time. If you have any questions, like I said, reach out to the school, but you're also welcome to reach out to us at the district office too. If you have any other questions about math or any of our testing programs, I'm happy to answer those questions. So, thank y'all very much for being here.